You are now listening to the Alsbrooks. Thanks for joining us, and we're excited to share our story to help empower yours. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Alsbrooks. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Jacqui.
And we're so excited to have you here today. We know it's been a little while since we've uploaded an episode, holidays, craziness, Jacqui being Jingle Jacqui, her alternate ego, her alter ego, her
Christian Hannah
superhero.
Montana, everybody. Christian Hannah Montana and old. That's my life.
I feel like that's less exciting though if we talk about it though, like it's a superhero alter ego and you're out there like fighting crime.
You think that's less exciting?
No, like the Hannah Montana is less exciting.
Yeah, but it's more accurate because I do music.
Yeah, but what if you fought crime through music?
Well, Mr. J can 100% be a superhero.
He cannot.
We can transform his role into flying.
Well, here's the deal. Mr. J is literally just me.
Yeah.
Like there is no alter ego, right?
I mean, that is accurate.
So, like what you see on the kids show is pretty much me in general. So that would make for a really lousy disguise. Like, I don't think the Superman thing's going to work. I'll just take my glasses off and I'm a different person.
I mean, it works for Clark Kent in Superman and Lois.
It does. It always has worked for him so well, which we should do a whole episode on that at some point.
Yes. Yeah, I think actually it would be fun to have a compilation of things that we can equate to that. Like a whole 10 Clark moments.
Yeah, that would actually be a lot of fun.
The glasses are off. I see it.
It's so different now.
Chicken Boo is my first one from Animaniacs. That's it, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, that's fair. Also, this is an intense introduction to this new episode we're doing.
Absolutely welcome.
We hit the ground running, immediate divergence. That's what we're good for.
Yeah. But I hope it was enjoyed. But we're going to revisit that though. Chicken Boo 100. For those of you who did watch Animaniacs, did you not get angry watching Chicken Boo? Like, oh my gosh, it's a chicken. Duh.
Yeah.
As a little kid, man, my logical brain was very frustrated. Well, take it away, Mr. J. What do you have to say today?
Well, we're going to get to our topic eventually, which is going to be expectations within like a marriage number 2, a blended family situation where you're coming into a situation, there's already kids and there's already kind of this family structure that's already built. But before we get there, what I wanted to do is take a moment, like I guess is our introduction when we're not talking about Superman or Chicken Boo, and maybe take a moment and share what has really stood out to us during our private time, our devotions. Has God been really impressing anything on our hearts? And we can just share that with everyone. So do you need a second or do you want to go first or would you like
why don't you go first? That way the seconds can come to me as you speak.
Okay. So one of my things that I have set out to do, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I am attempting to, and I just hit my camera's stand, so that might have come through. I don't know. But I am attempting to memorize the book of James in the Bible, in case there's other books of James that I'm unaware of. But just in case you're wondering.
Somewhere out there.
The biblical book of James.
The biblical book.
Yeah, I have not set out to memorize large chunks of scripture in a long time. And my brain is struggle bussing to do it. But we're getting there. But one of the things that I think God has been working on me about is in the first probably 6 verses of the book, you get to the point where it talks about when you ask in faith without doubting, because the one who doubts is like a wave driven and tossed by the wind. And of course, in its context there, it's talking about if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. And so within its context, I know it's talking specifically about wisdom, but it started making me think about the way I pray for other things. Do I honestly pray in a way that has zero doubt? And I think there are some times I do really well at that. And then I think there are other times that I really, really struggle. So what I've been working through and just praying through is God, I'm doing my best here to pray completely in faith with no doubting. But you know the way my brain works. You know that there is a little bit of an anxious individual in me that's always thinking and overthinking. So God, have your spirit work in me and start changing that and eliminate any kind of doubt whatsoever. And I don't think it's so much doubt in who God is. I don't even think it's so much doubt in his ability to answer my requests. I think some of the doubt and the concern and anxiety in me tends to come from how is he going to answer it? Not if
Yeah.
he can, it's is he going to do it the way that my logical brain thinks makes sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's where some of my doubt slash anxiety comes from. But nonetheless, I've really been praying through that, almost hearkening back to the Gospels when you read about the individual saying, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. It's almost as if I'm kind of praying through that all over again, because I would love to get to the point where I can pray and honestly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, say, I have zero anxiety. I have zero concern. I have zero doubt whatsoever. Sometimes I do, but there's definitely times I don't. So I'd love to get to a place where that's consistently, yes, zero doubts, full faith, let's go. So yeah, that's probably the thing that I guess God's been speaking to me about and I've been praying through and working my way through recently.
Yeah, that's good. I'm with you on that one. I wouldn't say that I have anxiety over how he's going to do it. I would say that I just care about nothing now. Like and and that's because typically I can bank on the fact that normally the way I'm asking for something to be done is not how it's going to happen. So, I think I've been through that cycle enough to where, I mean, we are going to speak a little bit on expectations today. So I think I've been through the cycle with God enough that I've learned how to pray and really let it go, because I know the odds are that what I'm asking, I'm missing something that he's seeing that I'm not. And typically I learn what it is in that journey. And I typically come out stronger on the other end and deeper rooted in my faith. And typically the more deeper rooted I am in my faith, I feel like I know less. So it's a very interesting, weird way of things happening, but I am more sure of Christ being the center and all that really matters in the end. So it's a weird way how that journey works, but it is what it is, right? But yeah, I would say that I used to be more hung up over the process. And sometimes I am. You see me. You know what we talk about. I cry a lot. I get angry a lot. So I'm not saying I never care about anything, but bigger picture, in the end, I've learned to stop floundering around and I could flounder and fight, or I can just do what needs to be done anyway and just let it go, and be like, yeah, it's probably not going to be this way. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, the struggle. And I still do that. You see, firsthand roller coaster ride seat next to me. You get that.
Yes, maybe that's why I don't like roller coasters.
That's a possibility. I don't know if you have an award by sitting next to me, like a grand prize, or if it's like a grand curse. I'm not sure. I'm sure it depends on the day.
Right.
For me, I have a very boring, mundane way of doing my devotions. I just wake up at a butt o'clock, and it's painful because I don't like being awakened from sleep, but it is the only time to kind of not be distracted. Doesn't always work. But yeah, I read through the Bible over and over and over and over again. So I'm on a loop always, and wake up, rinse, repeat. And right now I'm in the book of John, and I believe I'm in chapter 3. I finished up chapter 2 and I'm getting into chapter 3. We ended off with, I know that John the Baptist was preaching about Jesus coming. We have the Spirit of God descending upon Jesus as a dove. And I always just pray through what I'm reading, and there's typically more stuff that I see and retain a little bit differently than the last time each time I read through scripture. So I say it's boring and mundane just because I do this, like, even on Autobot at this rate. I've been doing it since I was 11, basically. That's how it all started and when. And yeah, just been on repeat. I'm now 37, so I've been doing it since then. Nothing glorified, nothing crazy. I typically don't have amazing, like, shedding of tears moments, although sometimes I do. But I'm always growing, always learning, and I really do trust God with my life and with who I am. So I'm very grateful for that.
Nice.
Like I told you, it doesn't sound very exciting, but yeah, I'm in the book of John, and I can't, I have my notes not with me. I probably should have grabbed them to share what stood out to me in the last thing. Yeah.
Well,
I
that's
know this
okay.
might be.
I think it's important that people know sometimes our daily walk doesn't feel or seem exciting.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we, especially if you only get a dose of it at church or at small group or something, you get these hits of like the spiritual highs of everybody else, and sometimes I think we feel that that's the way the Christian life should look,
Yeah.
and it's not.
It's not.
And I mean, even when you go into the Gospels or really any passage in Scripture where God's showing up in a powerful way, you forget just how much time lapses between those
Between.
instances,
Yeah. There's a lot,
right?
normally years, oftentimes years, for the
Yeah,
same person to have an encounter.
right.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we forget that and we just assume that like every day is going to be this
Wow.
monumental God showing off in this crazy way. And that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I think we forget that one of the best ways for God to show off, if you will, and bring glory to himself is just through the lives that we live,
Yes.
faithfully pursuing him. And those lives aren't always exciting,
Yeah.
and that's okay because that's what's reflecting glory to him is we're living our lives, maybe monotonously, but we're living differently. We're living in pursuit of him. And that's what really brings the glory to him. So I appreciate you sharing that it didn't seem exciting or doesn't seem exciting, because for 99% of your life, that's probably going to be the case for the average
Yeah.
person.
And knowing that is very helpful for people, I think.
Yeah.
God is real. His word is true. And you don't need to add to the truth. The truth is
Mhm.
sufficient. And pursuing that is always worthy of everything, even if it seems mundane or monotonous. And it doesn't always seem that way. But right now I'm in a section that wasn't like a big old wowzers, But next time we record one, I'll make sure I have my notes with me so I can share what I prayed through and stuff.
Nice.
There's always something to pray through no matter what you read. Even if you're confused, you can still pray through that and be like, yeah, God, I don't really don't really know what to get out of this one, but
Very true.
yeah.
Very true. So what I figured we could do is I figured we could talk a little bit about these wonderful things called expectations.
Your
And
favorite?
although there's, what's that?
Your favorite.
Yeah,
You got
100%. And we
married
can,
and you could not wait to go over expectations.
yeah, and we can kind of crack that a little bit and explain what you mean by that in a moment. But we know there's a lot of routes you can go with expectations. We want to, for this episode anyway, discuss them within the context of marriage, in our context specifically, second marriage. And then furthermore, expectations when one of those people in said second marriage have children already that they have been raising on their own for years.
That sounds a bit specific, babe. I wonder why you'd be saying these things.
Well, I thought it was important that we really niche down.
Yeah, really niche
We want
down.
we want to really niche down here and get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, not like we can relate or anything.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
So I think that that's a good place to start.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
but yeah, so for those of you here, if you don't have a wife number two, if you haven't, you're gonna get, don't worry, we're still gonna be talking about stuff that can help you.
It's still applicable, yeah.
Also, wife number two sounds weird coming out of my mouth. So if you haven't been remarried would be a better way of saying that. Yeah, we're not those type of religious people. So
I'm not a sister wife.
nope, none of that. But we're still going to have things that I think will be applicable for you. And maybe you've got kids, maybe you don't, maybe kids are on the way. But nonetheless, we think this will be beneficial
Yes.
because these principles still apply. It's just our circumstances were a little different than the average person getting married and having kids eventually together.
Yeah.
That wasn't the way our story worked out. So,
and I also think it's applicable because this is just this is a more common setup
Yeah.
in today's time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a good point too. I mean, it's interesting that we still kind of treat the blended family and those that are remarried a little bit like pariahs or lepers within the context of the church. It's like they're
Yeah.
here, but there really can't be that many of them. When
Right.
in
Yeah.
reality, the stats are pretty much the same,
Yep.
churched and unchurched. So you're looking at about a 50-50 split
50-50.
usually, even within the context of a church. So for those of us that have pastored in the past or currently pastoring, maybe we should stop treating that group of people like there's some unknown minority that
Yeah.
comes and maybe our church has a few. No, your church probably has a lot
Yep.
of those.
Yep.
So, with that being said, expectations. Okay, expectations. Let's talk about the definition first of all. I like to start there, and then we can get off to the races with this.
All right.
Okay.
Pastor us, babe.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have your dictionary, turn to the definition of expectation.
All right.
So this is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, a belief that someone will or should achieve something. Okay, so that's our definition, a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, or a belief that someone will or should achieve something or do something. All right, now, with all of that in mind, let's figure out what in the world our expectations were when we first started talking. We saw a future with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Jacqui, maybe before we even get to how it actually went down,
Mm-hmm.
would you want to share some of the expectations that you had in your head before everything got going?
You're talking about for our marriage, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could be more broad than that if you want to just talk about expectations for marriage in general, but I'll let you run with it. Expectations, marriage, family, where do you want to go? What
Well,
were your expectations?
here's a crazy thing I think is really important to set like some foreground with this. When I got married the first time, because Jeremiah and I are each other's spouse number two.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make that very clear. So if he refers to me as wife too, that's why. We are both remarried to one another. We both had a round one, and we don't mean any disrespect with round one. Those are done. They ended poorly on both of our ends, and we did the best that we could, and it is what it is. So here we are. And I'm very, very, very thankful to God that I have you. So no regrets about anything. I have two beautiful girls, and they were supposed to be exactly as they are. But I will say, going into round one, sorry, this is the ASL version, round one. My expectations, sadly, going into round one were all on me. So, and I would say that has a lot to do with the home I was raised in, first and foremost, and secondly, the church culture that I was brought up in. So I do wish that I had more counseling about expectations than just be submissive, be this, be a pure person, save yourself for marriage. You bring more value when you save yourself for marriage. Now, the things that I'm saying were the things I had in my head. This doesn't mean I stand by this now. I do think it's important to wait until marriage for that stuff. I don't know if we're going full G or PG here. I'm not sure what we're doing with our lingo, but you all know what I'm saying. Those are good concepts to live by. I just wish that I had more than just that, because that would have helped me gauge who I married better. But for round two, I had that. So I'm very thankful for that. But like I said, I put everything on me for round one, and that was very reflective in our marriage. I tried to make everything happen and do everything. I had 4 jobs. I single parented with the child while married. So I did everything and lost me completely in all of that. So that's not why things ended. We already have things about that earlier in other blogs. We don't have to go into that more. You can still make things work if you're not a true team. You can become a team. You have to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
For you, sweetie, I would say that expectations were very, very different. I no longer wanted a checklist of what looked good and godly to me. I did that in the first round. I wanted somebody who could sing. I was a worship leader, so I thought playing an instrument would be really cool. So we could write music together. Has to be involved in all these different things, knows God's word. I had a checklist like that. Those are all really good things, but I learned that there's a lot more to it that's practical. So being a single mom and meeting you and dating, because we're niching down into round 2, right? That's more the focus of this one is blended family expectations.
No, I mean, I think we can go wherever you want to with it. I know that that's eventually where we're going to end up,
Okay,
but
gotcha.
yeah, you can run with it because right now it's your thoughts on marriage and family and expectations. So wherever you want to go for it.
Okay. I would say that what I was looking for when we were speaking, and I found very quickly, because you're very easy to read up front, you are exactly like you said on my show. You're the same as this person right here. um, many kids, side note, guys, Jingle Jacqui Christian Learning for Children. If you're watching this, you might already be someone who's watched my show, but that is my full-time job. So I do reference it a lot, but I got to drag my husband into it, who is very willing to be dragged. And oftentimes when you see kids content creators, you see a lot of putting on, having a different voice to sound more kid friendly, like, hiya guys, da, da, da. And I do speak a little slower. I slow my roll down a bit since it's for younger children. I'm still the same though. But Jeremiah, on the other hand, is that. And this is what I love about having him on the show. He's just as dry in that show, but I think it's realistic because we want children to learn like they would in their own home with their own parents. We're not trying to be their parents, but we're trying to support parents out there who are already teaching their kids the boring stuff, you know?
Mhm.
So we're not going to bells and whistle. We're not going to bells and whistles? Bells and
Yeah,
whistles? Is that the thing? Yeah, it is.
yeah, that's
We're
the
not
phrase.
we're not trying to slap a mask on the Bible and make it look like something it's not. We want these children to understand what the Bible says in a way that's fun and engaging, but still true to scripture. And my husband is wonderful at getting up there and still not overdoing it and not underdoing it. He's just smooth sailing. Dads, that's our tip of the hat to all the dads out there, and it's wonderful. We're not putting on, guys. Sorry, that's a side note right there. But you would agree with that, right, sweetie? Are you putting on?
No, no. I think shooting for absolutely adequate is what we're going for. And I'll be honest, I think I'm crushing it.
You are crushing it.
Absolutely adequate.
Absolutely adequate. I think that's why we were together in one shot, and maybe we'll go together more, but I think it's more, I think it does justice to who we are better that we have our own spaces in my show for that very reason, because I can be quite opposite of you, and you put us together, I think you'll see that dynamic. As kids, it might not be as exciting as adults. I think adults get a kick out of it more than children. But who
Yeah.
knows?
I can see that.
Yeah,
That's probably why we do so well on this podcast together.
because you've
Side
got your
by side, our
doppelganger.
faces, you know. It's great. It's great.
Our rooms are very opposite. I was trying to think of what it would be like if we did a shot together behind me in my room with my beautiful light pink/purple wall coming out of your dark X-Men den. But maybe one day we'll do that. Either
Yeah.
way, okay. So gonna get back on there. Sorry, babe. Anyway, expectations. Really, what I was looking for first and foremost. One thing that I don't think I looked for round one is like career. Do you have a career? Are you steady in your career? Are you solid and established? Because I'm telling you, mid 30s. We were young 30s when we met. You were turning 30. I was 32. I
Well, I
think.
was young 30s. You were my cougar.
I was still young 30s, babe. I think I was 31 turning 32. I'm a year
Uh,
and a half older than him, everybody.
All I
It's
know is one day she came up and snatched me out of my cradle. So,
gosh. That would be so gross. He was not in a cradle, I promise. He had a full-grown beard. He was a grown man. And he had a grown job, okay? So anyway, when you're in your 30s, if you're looking to marry somebody, especially if you're a single parent, do not marry someone unemployed. Like, I'm just going to throw that out there. Do what you do. I don't want to judge. But everyone, we're all judging, okay? I don't want to judge meanly. I'm not saying it meanly. I'm saying, like, I didn't want to take on a third child. That's what I'm trying to get to. I already had 4 jobs. I wasn't interested in being with another person who was not going to take care of me the way I took care of them or our children. So I had these 2 babies, like I am their life support. I am their caregiver in every way possible. I'm not taking on another child. I'm going to take on a teammate, somebody who will contribute. And it is not a teammate if I am the only person working and the other person is not carrying their end of the deal. You know what I'm saying? So it's not tit for tat. It's not like that because I'm worth it. It wasn't that. It was like, we need to display for my children what a team is. Also, when you read scripture, you're supposed to have a helpmate. It's supposed to be a helpmate. So I think career was very important. Did you have one? And yes, you did. That was important. So that was one. I don't want to take up the whole thing, though. I already said so many things. Do you want to share one and we can banter about it?
Sure. One of my expectations coming in was probably just communicating differently to the degree that I no longer felt like I needed to hide aspects of myself. And I didn't want you to feel like you had to hide aspects of yourself
Yeah.
either. Um, and that was something that I really desired, even if it leads to frustration and sometimes tough conversations and even at times arguments.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted that more than the opposite, where there's always kind of something or conversations that aren't being had that should be had. And because nobody wanted to make anyone uncomfortable and blah, blah, blah. Now,
Yeah.
that was my expectation going in. I think I did not understand just how difficult that could be to actually put into practice. And it has led to some very difficult conversations throughout the course of our relationship.
Yeah.
But it was something that I wanted and I expected. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I nailed it all the time. But it was something that I expected and wanted because I knew the damage that could occur if we didn't do that.
Yeah.
So that was something I just wanted somebody that I could talk to, be completely transparent with all the time. And I think even when we were dating and seeing each other digitally or via Zoom or whatever, I felt that way. I felt like we could already talk largely about anything.
Yeah.
And guys, we're not kidding when we say that we skipped like all of the shallow stuff completely and went straight into the hard stuff,
Yeah.
because I don't think either of us were really interested in wasting our time. So that was an expectation from basically the jump. And I think it overall went pretty well in spite of some of the difficult conversations that it led to. It was
Mm-hmm.
definitely something I wanted. I needed and wanted full transparency. Let's not hide ourselves. Let's be vulnerable. Once we got to a place, obviously, where we could trust each other with some of that. I'm not saying date one, give them everything about you and your
Right.
social security number. That's not what I'm saying. But that was the goal. That was the expectation to eventually get there.
Well, yeah, if you're not feeling safe to open up in a relationship, chances are it's not going to get better
Right.
by you committing to one another. That's not how it works. It's not like you commit. I mean, that could happen. That could very well happen, but it will spare, I believe, a lot of heartache if you nail that before you're married. Or
Mm-hmm.
you're open about working towards that. That's a goal already. It's on your mind, to be a safe place for the other to communicate. And I agree with you. So the things that we're sharing, I think we found we're on the same page with, which is why we're kind of sharing them in here. And I do want to clarify on my one about like work. I think for me, that was important because I was a single mom. And even in my first marriage, I always had multiple jobs because there was instability on the other side. It was not met with a mutual, I'm going to take up our financial cause with you and be a teammate. It wasn't that. It was more, go ahead and do all this and pay all our bills. You've got this, while I do what I want.
Yeah.
So I did not want a repeat of that. I absolutely did not want that. I wanted a teammate. I wanted a father. If I was going to get married again and go through all that work that I know it takes, and marriage is great when you do it right. I know people say it's hard, but I don't even think it's hard. I think marriage is great when you make the right choices. And like any relationship, you have hard times, but I wouldn't say it's supposed to be hard. I don't think marriage is supposed to be hard. Marriage is easy when you marry your best friend and make great choices. It's easy in the sense that you're on the same page and you're willing to work through it together. So you do the work, whatever. It can hurt sometimes, but it shouldn't be hard all the time. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, sweetie? I see your face.
Yeah, I mean, I think marriage is hard. So, and what I mean is not to the degree of if it's like a video game and you're just cranking up the difficulty, because I think what does that is often your choices
Mm-hmm.
that are going to lead to that. But I think that if we want to stick with that analogy, the game of life is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to navigate the game of life with someone else that has their own personality, their own opinions, their own desires and wants, I do think that that does naturally lead to some increased difficulty and challenges. Um, I know that to what end you're saying, I don't think it should feel hard all the time.
Yeah.
But the reality is there is a certain level of dying to yourself daily that has to happen not only in your relationship with Christ and pursuing him, but there's also a degree of that self-sacrifice that has to go on within the context of your marriage. And that is probably going to be the hardest decision you have to make every day.
Yeah.
As a parent, you got to do it with your kids too. So I think that inherently, as a Christian, trying to pursue Jesus sacrificially as well, while also doing the same for my spouse, while also doing the same for my kids, while also trying to maintain some kind of semblance of self still
Mm-hmm.
in a healthy way is a challenge. I
Yeah.
think that that is hard.
Yeah.
But I don't think the concept of marriage, like you said, should feel hard all the time. Like if you're
Yeah.
just in it and you're like, dang, this is the hardest thing I've ever done, like all the time, there's probably some other issues going on in the marriage that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
But being married, being healthy in your marriage, pursuing Jesus together, and raising a family together, all in the same place, same time, is challenging. I think that there's
Yeah.
just no other way to
Yeah, it
put it.
is. I guess what I'm saying is a lot of people grow up expectations with the expectation that marriage is hard. So when it's hard, that's all they expect.
Yeah.
And I think that's a dangerous expectation to have on a marriage, is to always think, this is hard. So no duh, no wonder we're not getting along. Marriage is hard. I think I think it's I understand though that it is. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, we have human nature inside of us. But
Mm-hmm.
marriage is supposed to be a picture of Christ. And I don't think he walked around like with a negative view of his relationship with the Father and with the church. But I guess I don't want to put words in his mouth though. He's Jesus. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that it's supposed to be a picture of something that's always begrudging. You know what I'm saying? I think it's supposed to be more of a functional blessing than it is supposed to be a labor of difficulty. Now,
Hmm.
not saying that that doesn't happen, but
Yeah.
I think the overall picture of what you should expect in a marriage should be like a union, should be a team ship, should be
Yeah.
building a kingdom together that's glorifying to God. That's a beautiful family. And it's not
Yeah.
going to be perfect. We see that Jesus' life looked really messy
Yeah.
because of the people in it. So
Yeah.
marriage will look messy at times, but I think overall, if you look back on your marriage and you can say this is a blessing, I think that's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a
Yeah.
good picture overall.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
think that's
I would still push back on difficulty a little bit, because I think the issue isn't the fact that kids are raised with the expectation that marriage is going to be hard, because I think that that's probably true, and it is true. I think where we run into issues is that we've taught our kids to quit when things get hard, that things in life that are hard are not worth persevering through. And I think that's where marriages that are really, like you said, a blessing and something that is seen as such a vast improvement on their life as opposed to being single, are those that have gone through the hardships and persevered and they did not quit.
I can see
I
that.
think we see so many people hit hardships in their marriage and they just quit. They just rate like, it's like, I'm done. I'm over it.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't mind young people moving forward with the expectation that it's hard. I also want them moving forward though with a plan, knowing that it's hard, so that they are prepared for the difficulties when they come. Because if you don't, what is it they say? If you don't plan to succeed, you're planning to fail. Or there's some little pastor phrase that people say right there.
Hmm.
Um, or if, there it is. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's what it
Yeah.
is. Um, so I think for me that's more how I would look at it. I don't mind if they expect it to be hard, because it will be, because life is hard. But how do you navigate through it? And how do you, like you say, persevere and then get to a place where it's good? Because I think most people would agree with this. Many times, your best times are on the other side of hard times. So, and it's because of the hard times that we can really enjoy the good ones. So, because that does create a contrast, if you will. So, yeah, and again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think
Yeah.
that would be the way I view it. And maybe it's just the way my brain works. Maybe it's the way I look at it differently. I'm not saying either of us are wrong. I
Hmm.
just personally don't mind if someone expects marriage to be difficult.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you're right. I mean, that's your perspective on things,
Yeah.
but because of what I went through, we have different filters on what that looks like and how to
Mm,
prepare people accordingly.
yeah.
I expected it to be hard. And when I was abused, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Marriage is hard. I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
Like, you talk about somebody who will fight through anything. I'm that person. Like,
Yeah.
especially if it's hard. I wanted to prove to Satan
Yeah.
that, like, I can handle anything.
Yeah.
I can handle all forms of abuse, and I will shove it in your face and I will give
Mm-hmm.
God the glory. It's not going to get me down.
Mm-hmm.
So, hearing what you say, I think that's great for somebody
Yeah.
who's not in a toxic situation, but
Sure.
then I was ill-equipped to
Right.
understand, where do you draw the line? Where
Yeah.
where does hard turn into this is not acceptable in God's eyes,
Yeah.
you know? So I think that's why I'm saying, like, I would have loved having some different preparations
Mm.
growing up. There are times where you're supposed to say enough is enough, boundaries.
Yeah.
I would say expectation. Another thing with expectations would be boundaries. When
Mm.
I'm uncomfortable, you need to respect that.
Yeah.
And when you're uncomfortable, I need to respect that. And that was something that was very important to me when we were getting to know each other, that I had
Sure.
no concept of in round one. In round one, my expectation is I do everything to serve because I'm a servant of Christ. I'm a martyr for Jesus. I
Mm-hmm.
give, I serve, serve, serve.
Yeah.
And I would say with you, boundaries were really important, almost to the extent that I felt like a horrible wife when we got married.
Sure.
And I felt like I was being terrible to you because if I didn't like something, I would say something, and it hurt my soul to do it. It was very like against everything I was trained to do, everything. And it wasn't like I was trained by Jesus to do that. I
Yeah.
had to clarify. Some people think that the church grooms people. Some churches might. The Bible does not groom people to make poor decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is mishandling God's word and you were a victim of that, I am so sorry. And I have been in the position where it's been misused over me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that you could have been in that position, babe. Everybody has a chance to be misled by scripture, but you knew it too well, and your dad knew it too well. You had great people around you to be deceived by that kind of stuff, and I'm happy for you. Must be nice.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And
I know that you've suffered a lot of other types of repercussions because
yeah,
of that brain of yours knowing these things.
I think that's a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I do think when it comes to the challenges of marriage and being prepared for them, I think there is a certain level of preparation that needs to be done, both on the husband and the wife end, moving towards marriage, for these types of situations. Because I think there is a difference between marriage being hard because of what life just naturally brings and the challenges that you will face as a unit, versus the challenges that come when one of the individuals within that union has decided to go their own way
Yeah,
and mistreat the other party,
correct.
to the degree that it does become problematic and abusive.
Yep.
So those are not the challenges that I was speaking about at all. And I think some of that comes down to, again, the preparation and the planning.
Hmm.
Like, like you said, if there wasn't some sort of clarification there, somebody could have listened to this podcast and just thought, oh, well, he says it's hard. This is the way it is. Just suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah.
That is not it. So I'm glad that you brought some balance to that, because that is not at all what I'm saying. I
Hmm.
think abuse is never okay. I think that your
Mistreatment.
spouse, while at times will be challenging, they should never be this giant obstacle that is always trying to put you underfoot or walk all over you God forbid, abuse you.
Yeah.
That is not okay.
Right.
So I appreciate you speaking up there, and I apologize to you or for anyone listening if that's the way my opinion came across. That yeah, if it's just hard, that's fine. It's normal. Well, there are certain types of hard that are not fine and normal. I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah.
should have been the caveat that I add there.
Yeah, but
Um,
I mean, you represent a good number of people who wouldn't think like that, and I
yeah,
represent a good number of people who would think like that. So
right.
that's why we like to talk about these things
Yeah,
because
for sure. And if someone came
you're
up to
right.
me and shared that with me as a former pastor, I would never advise them, "Oh, well, suck it up, you'll be fine."
Right, yeah.
If they're in a dangerous situation, that's not what I'm telling them.
Right. Yeah, you never came off that way either when we were talking. It's not like I had to educate you on how to respond to me. You actually came into our friendship very sensitive
Mhm,
and reading the room with me and the things
mhm,
I was sharing with you. And that was something that I really loved about you very quickly is you, without me asking, moved at my pace.
mhm,
And that really I that's always one of the first things I say about you that made me know that I was safe with you. Um, I don't know. I was always with people who wanted to love bomb me and move forward very quickly. And I felt uncomfortable, but I didn't want to make them feel bad. So I went at their pace. And it never ended well for that. And that wasn't just in relationships like romantic ones. I'm talking about friendships too. I'm even
mhm,
talking about relationships with ministries and them wanting me to be part of the ministry and serve like people just because I know what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I do. I've been a worship leader for so long and I can speak and I relate to people really well and I love people. So I can hop in pretty quickly kind of anywhere and just join in and blend in and help advance whatever their goal is. So it was nice for a change to be speaking with somebody who understood that because I think you kind of went through that and could relate to that a little bit as well, differently, but kind of the same.
mhm,
But you respected my boundaries. I didn't want to give you my number and you didn't push for my number. So you got me on Instagram and gave me voice messages on there, which was really nice. I liked that and you didn't question why. You weren't like, well, that's so dumb that you'll do this, but not that. I gave him my address to send me hot chocolate because I really like hot chocolate. On a bad day, he sent it to me, but I didn't want to speak on the phone yet. I wasn't ready to give him my phone number. Reason being, the phone is a burden to me. A lot of people always wanted to talk to me on the phone, and I did not have time. So even to this day, I live up to that like dread of the phone and phone calls. There are many people who want to speak to me and catch up with me, and I'm getting like emotional talking about it. It actually is like a burden to me because, oh my gosh, I'm always working. Dang it, stop it. I always cry and all of these things, and I'm not trying to do it on purpose. It's just, guys, if you're my friend and I've let you down on the phone, this is why the sadness is there. I'm so sorry. It's not on purpose. I'm just always trying to pay bills. Dang it. Stop it. Ugh. We're fine. I know we're financially okay, but like it's not guaranteed. Um, what I do is not great. Dang it. What I do is wonderful and fun. Um, but it's still not a surefire way of supporting my family. And oh my gosh, nothing I do is ever enough. Um, but I give it everything I've got. I love you guys, and I never want to leave you in a hard place, babe, or my children in a hard place. And it's really hard to shake that mindset because I've been there for so long. So guys, if you're trying to talk to me and connect with me, it's never anything personal. It's just the fact that I'm like really trying to get there so I don't have to worry anymore. And I'm not worried. Like you can verify that, sweetie. I'm not worried. But I do work really hard and I do work nonstop.
mhm.
And I just don't have much time for anything else other than my family and my work. So if I have spoken with you on the phone, it's a Christmas miracle. Everyone does matter to me though. But yeah, I would say that caused me panic to think about giving you my number, sweetie, because then there was an expectation that I would use that phone to be accountable to you and to speak and give you my time and give you my attention. Because a lot of people want that from me and I just don't have that to give. And I didn't have it to give it to you up front. So I was just afraid of the commitment that came with giving you my number, to be honest, because it ends up being another thing to do on the list, you know?
Yeah.
That was a big rant and a big sidestep over there, but it's like hitting me now why I hate talking on that thing so much. I'd rather just connect via text. That's much easier for me. And then there's no time obligation for me when I have 1,000 billion things to do, and it's never enough anyway for what I actually need.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a boundaries one and a respect one. That was an expectation that I had. I don't even think I had the expectation of you respecting my boundaries. I had the hope that you would, but it wasn't an expectation that I knew how to set. But you set it for me, and I appreciated that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think for me, another expectation, or maybe it was something I was more concerned about the expectations of, was what did it look like to join your family once we decided, hey, we were going to, be a thing, we're going to get married. I had no clue what being a dad in a situation like that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my mind, I had certain expectations. Yes, it will be more complicated, but at the end of the day, it's largely just going to be the way I grew up. Like I'm just going to be that kind of dad, and it's going to work out eventually, and it'll be fine. Spoiler alert, it didn't. That's not the way it works. But I think that was kind of my expectation, that it would be a little challenging up front, but that it would eventually just kind of drop into what I had seen my entire life. And I could not have been more wrong.
Yeah.
That's not at all it. This expectation that you can come into a situation like that in a relatively short period of time, basically just act as if you've been in these people's lives their whole life is not it. That takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain things that I think happened more quickly than I expected. And then there were certain things that, were a lot more difficult and challenging to kind of integrate into. And I read some articles that talked about how for the average like new member of the family, whether it's a stepdad or stepmom or whatever, coming into a situation like that, it takes almost 7 years to completely integrate. And at first I saw that number and I thought, man, there's no way like that can't be right. Now, under normal circumstances, that makes more sense because of the situations of those family members. It just innately increases the time of integration. Obviously, Jacqui's situation is a little bit more unique in the way that it all unfolded, and I'm not going to get into all of that. But there was a certain onboarding that I think most step parents have to go through that I did not have to stay on that ramp for as long. I think the girls were excited about having me in their lives, which was cool. And as a result, I think that enabled me to skip a few steps, and which was nice. Don't get me wrong. But I think because some of those steps were skipped, I was also potentially looking at skipping other steps and just just kind of sliding on in. Hey, I'm here. We're this happy family, and I'm just going to kind of do the thing that like my dad did when I was raised, and everything's going to work out. It didn't. Even down to like being a disciplinarian, air quote. Like I grew up, my dad was the disciplinarian. In a situation like this, you can't be. Like it's just not. Like, first of all, you can't be when you go into a blended family situation because you have to establish relationship first.
Yeah.
You have to. My dad used to say all the time growing up, I believe it was Josh McDowell that said it at first at some point in his book. He'd said, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. And I had to come in and understand, and it took me a while to understand that, man, I'm just here to build relationships. And any time that I strayed outside of that and did position myself more as like an authority, it did more harm than good.
Yeah.
Like at this point in our lives, we're going on 4 years of marriage. It's a little different now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But up front, I did not need to be in a position of authority at all, nor did I need to be seen in one so that I could build a relationship with them.
Yeah.
That is not necessarily what I expected going in.
Yeah.
But if I could go back and do it over again, I would tell Jeremiah, hey, buddy, this is what it's going to look like. This is going to be the way to go about it. But again, my expectations were off. Even though I was reading books, even though I was reading articles, they were off.
Mhm.
There's no other way to cut that cookie. My expectations towards that in my role were off. Now I understand, even to this day, Jacqui tends to be more of the disciplinarian still, in
Mhm.
that she comes up with consequences. We have a unified front. Um, Sometimes Jacqui will be like, you girls better do this before I go tell your dad. So like,
Yeah.
I still have some of that energy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm still not the one that usually brings down any sort of consequence at all. Not without
Mhm.
talking to her anyway, um, because it just generally isn't my role. My role in this situation still is to love Jacqui, love my daughters, support my wife, support the structure that she had established in the home, work together, but still largely let her spearhead things on the discipline side so that I can continue to focus on things on the relationship side. That is something that I did not fully understand nor have the proper expectations of when I first came into the relationship.
I would say too that the more that was embraced, and I think that's something we both learned as time went on. Like I
Yeah.
knew that when we got married. I think you knew that too. The knowledge was there. I just think different learned behaviors and things had to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
And and for me, like it was really hard when we got married for me to shake the submission word. And that's a
Mm.
scary word. We'll have to do one on that at one point too. In a blended family, submission is different.
Yeah.
Submission looks different in every marriage, to be honest with you. There is no cut and dry way of discussing what that looks like because it's very different per husband and wife. It's going to look different what that submission looks like. So, I mean, we know that scripture says that the wife is to submit to the husband, and that's a ranking thing, that's a title thing. Like I said, we don't have to go crazy into that. But how do you do that when I already established the rules of the home before you came into our home, really, in all
Mm.
honesty? And it's our home. I know that. But up front, you're coming into three people who've been living life for 6, 7 years
Yeah.
together and have something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's best for the whole family as a unit isn't what's best for the one person entering into that family.
Yep.
It's easier to integrate the one and then us four to pivot all together and grow all together.
Yep.
And that's not just you come in and do what we say. That's not
Yeah.
it. So, submission is a very odd word to try to wrap your brain around when a husband is coming into a single mother's home.
Yeah.
And it probably was very difficult for both of us to kind of flounder around and try to see what that looks like in living moment in real time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
hear these
Absolutely.
things and you really don't quite know what that looks like until you're in it. And
Right.
I'm grateful for the foundation we had prior to that. And I'm very grateful for the foundation we have now, which is even stronger and more solid.
Yeah.
And I know we've had our hardships, sweetie, but when I think of our marriage, I don't think, man, it's hard being married to Jeremiah. I don't. That's not anything I would tell anybody, and I promise you, like it's not.
Yeah.
You can stalk my phone and messages and things. Like I think so highly of you. So we had a very hard season. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that. But I don't look at our marriage and think, man, my life's just down the drainer because I've got this martyrdom of a wife life, you know?
Right.
That's, you are not a drain of who I am. You're
Yeah.
not draining of me. You're very supportive of me.
Right.
You push me forward. You don't compete with me. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about the marriage is hard thing. Like if
Yeah.
I've lived that life before
Yeah.
and thought that was normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way God wants it to be. But I understood what you were getting at. When things are hard, you don't give up. That's not how it's supposed to be. Normal hard.
Yeah.
Not abusive, not unsafe,
Right.
hard. Just because we're selfish
Yep.
people sometimes,
Yeah.
all the time.
And hard doesn't always mean bad.
Exactly. Yes. It doesn't
It's
always
not
mean
always the case.
Yeah, it has a negative connotation. But
Right. I
yeah,
did
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I did want to clarify really quickly when we're talking about the topic of submission within our marriage. I know a lot of people automatically, when they hear submission, they think, oh, the guy's just like, do as I say, do it right now, and all that kind of stuff. That is not ever the situation that Jacqui and I had. It was never
Correct.
you're my footstool situation. It was still, though, trying to figure out, like she said, what does submission look like when I'm coming in as the newbie and I'm the one having to figure out how to integrate while simultaneously, according to scripture, trying to love, protect, and guide this new family from square zero.
Yeah.
That was a challenge. That was a challenge trying to figure it out, like my opinions or my preferences or maybe even my expectations. How much weight do they truly carry in a situation like this? Because this isn't the way God desired it up front. Like,
Yeah.
that we're in a situation that is complex. So it was challenging, but I think we navigated that really well, especially once we got to the place where we were willing to just kind of put it all out there.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm feeling. Um, Now you tell me where you're at. Tell me what you're feeling, and
Yeah.
then let's figure things out and move forward together. I think that was a real turning point for us, because I
Hmm.
think up front we were still both a little, even though we said we wanted that, I think we were both a little trepidatious about truly laying it all out there,
Hmm.
because sometimes what we want to lay out is big and at times a lot to digest.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to clarify the submission thing, because I don't want anybody that's listening to think that we have the relationship or even the belief that it's just this women are footstools type theology and mindset and outlook on life. That is not us.
No, no, it's not. But we will have to dive into those tricky waters one day, babe.
Yes.
Just because it's fun to take on these challenges.
Yes.
Fun.
So I know our time, we're trying to really cut back on some of these. We're coming down the home stretch. So to wrap it up, what is one piece of actionable advice that you would give individuals listening when it comes to expectations within their marriage and their parenting? What's something that they can take away from this and potentially discuss or put into place?
Dang. One takeaway I think for expectations in a marriage. This is round one or two.
Mm,
Is I think the turning point for us is when we could establish we are for each other no matter what is coming out of our mouth in a conflict.
mm,
That we both had to be convinced that the other party was for ourselves.
mm,
I was very scared to put my trust in that with you, and to both communicate that to one another and say, okay, no matter what's been done, this point forward, you need to understand I am for you
mm,
no matter what our problem is. So please understand at the base of whatever I say and whatever conflict we're in, I am discussing this with you because I'm
yeah.
for you and I want our relationship to grow. I'm not just trying to protect myself,
Mm,
although I do want to be protected. So please, I am like a
right.
baby bird in your hand, protect me. But I
Right.
think we both felt that way about the other.
Yeah.
And that is a good expectation to have. You and your husband, or husbands and wives, should have each other's backs
Yeah.
in all conflict resolution. I can't speak. And that will make a world of a difference if you understand that about the other party in your communication, even not conflict, even just disagreements and even agreements.
Yeah.
There's one for me. How about you, babe?
I think for me, it's the importance of voicing whatever expectations you have.
No, that's true.
I
Yeah.
think an expectation that is unspoken is nothing more than a disappointment.
Yeah.
And I think that type of disappointment tends to lead to bitterness if we're not careful. So I think that would be mine. If you have expectations
Say
and
it.
you're safe, share them. Share them, whatever they are, whether it's the way you raise your kids, whether it's where you're going to church, big life decisions, Maybe it's even, hey, I need your help cooking dinner sometimes, or I need you really to step up on the weekends and do XYZ, or I can't do this with the kids. Could you do it? Whatever it is. Like if you have expectations, voice them.
Yeah.
Um,
That's actually really good because that has helped me a lot in our marriage for me to, because I think I'm the one who had more of those just because I came with the kids.
mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to I didn't want to come off as needy or a burden to you. I didn't want you
Mm-hmm.
to regret marrying me. So I would often do everything on default because that's what I was already doing. So why change? And
Yeah.
I think you thought I was good with that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not fair to be mad at you when I'm not even giving you the chance to know that I would like help with it. I'm always like, I'm a strong, independent woman. So if that's what you're thinking of me, that's kind of on me. I have to be willing to share the load. So as time has gone on, I've been realizing I need to speak. Otherwise, it's really not fair for me to be upset when you have not read my mind. I just said that to you during the week, again, this past week, because I did not speak.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to know that I need your help when I'm not telling you that I actually really could use it? But
Yeah.
you've been wonderful to hear me out, and even voicing those expectations doesn't always guarantee that you're going to get what you're speaking about, but you're at
Right.
least voicing it and figuring it out together, and you're for
Yeah.
each other.
Exactly.
All that to say, I agree with you. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yep. So that's our spill. Obviously, there's a lot more to discuss with expectations. We're
Yeah.
trying to do a lot better job of keeping these things a little bit more concise.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up there. But if you do have any questions or comments on expectations, how they work within the context of your marriage, or maybe your blended family, or whatever it might be, feel free to drop those in the comments or shoot us an email. You can come to our website and contact us there as well, thealsbrookfamily.com. We'd love to hear from you. If there's other topics or things that you would love to hear us discuss, let us know there as well, because we're definitely in the planning stage for this coming year. To be perfectly transparent with you, there is a lot going on. So when it comes to episode planning, any help you could provide as far as topics and just things you'd love is beneficial for us. But as always, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you not just taking the time to hang out with us, but to do that regularly. I know some of you have been listening to these since we dropped them. It's not an easy commitment, but thank you for spending the time with us. We so
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it.
Yes,
If
thank you
you
so
are,
much.
yeah, if you want to find Jacqui's stuff, other content, especially if you have kids, check out Jingle Jacqui Christian Learning for Kids on YouTube.
Yeah, you won't
Uh,
regret it.
yeah, I think she's fantastic. And
Thanks,
yes, I
babe.
am biased, but even if I wasn't married to her, I know a good thing when I see it, or in her case, also when I hear it, because she
Thanks,
crushes it
babe.
with her music.
Thank
Uh,
you.
but
Yeah, guys,
anyway,
subscribe to us, like our video, share, and comment away. We will answer it all. We love you guys.
absolutely. Love you guys. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
See you, everybody.